Good evening, everybody. I am now center camera. Welcome to the June OCRA membership meeting. It's a pleasure joining you from beautiful, cold upstate New York, where it's nice and warm and 58 degrees right now. But it's still comfortable sleeping weather. Tonight is going to be a pretty much one focus, one topic meeting. And we'll see that when we get into the agenda. But why don't we go ahead and, if we could, Dan, if or whoever's going to walk the mic around the room, let's have everybody do the intros, and Lori can change from me to the room camera, and we'll get to say hello to everybody. And then, as usual, Lori can go ahead and introduce everybody on Zoom, because we've got all of that figured out here. So let me turn it over to our cameraman for this evening. And let's kick this thing off.
Camera. Okay, R4UB Dan, and Fred's going to walk it around so I can steer the camera.
Excellent. Thank you, Fred.
And for QBZ, Fred.
KM4MDR, John.
KF4WBK, Chip.
Karen, KG4YJZ.
Derek, KF5CYN.
Bob, W4FK Hillsboro.
Dave, W4SAR, Aswan.
KF4 Orion, Bill, Durham.
Joe, K4SAR, Durham.
KU4GC, D in Hillsboro.
Whiskey Zulu 4, Bravo Sierra Sierra, Brad, Hillsboro.
Dave, NA4VY, and I feel your cold pain. I just got back from Camden, Maine on the ocean.
Oh, and 2XF from Butner.
Boyd, KO4GJO, Hillsboro.
Thanks, Fred. W4BOH, also Hillsboro.
Okay, and on Zoom, we have the following folks, JR, N4JQR. We have a pirated call sign tonight from Charles Harris, N4CH, that has a story, but you'll have to ask him after the meeting. We've got Randy, KF40, Mark, KR3AM. We did have Patrick, KO4QLU, and Doug, KA5ETS, Bruce, N1LN, and I'm Lori, N1YXU.
Big group tonight. Well, that is outstanding, and thank you all for coming out. This is a very important meeting program topic. As you will hear from Dave, this is one of the, other than perhaps the Christmas party, this is probably one of the most well-attended activities that we have during the year. And it's also, I believe, the only activity, well, I can't say that anymore, because Bob had a picnic, and that was attended by both radio clubs. Best attended activity of the year with ARRL Field Day. So everybody is looking forward to that. And now that we can get beyond some of the COVID stuff and we can get together again, and it's really nice to be able to do that, as well as still continue to operate from our houses. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Lori so she can bring up the presentation. And everybody that is on mute on Zoom, if you could mute your microphone, that would be appreciated, just to make sure we don't get any feedback, and Dave can make sure he has control of the microphone without anybody overriding him. So with that, let me introduce you all to somebody that I don't have to introduce, Dave, W4SAR, our Field Day Chairman. Over to you, Dave.
And let me know if I've grabbed the wrong place to put the camera, because I can change that. There we go. Okay, perfect.
All right, thank you all, and you can hear me okay. All right, well, we've been doing field day for quite some years now, and um, if we bring up the presentation, this year it's June 22nd and 23rd. Some people say it's the last weekend in June. It's not always the case. It's always the fourth full weekend in June, which is looks like it comes a little bit early this year. It'll be the 22nd and 23rd.
This is geography. Next question. Can you lick it?
Hello.
Hang on a minute, Dave, we'll mute it.
Okay, can we have the next slide, please? All right. Well, some time ago, the two clubs, OCRA and DFMA, had been operating field day independently, and they weren't at the bottom, shall we say? They were up in the middle of the rankings, and each was kind of struggling with having enough people to operate field day. So one day, some members of the DFMA approached OCRA and said, "What if we pull our resources and give that a try? Since we already have many people who are dual members in both clubs, and it's kind of painful for them to have to make a choice which club to go with for field day." So we did that. We threw together and did a field day operation, and it did okay. A little bit better than our combined scores from the year before. But then a synergy happened, and from then afterwards, it started ramping up and up the ranks. We moved higher and higher, and we finally got to the point where we were actually listed in the top 10 nationally. When you consider that at the time there was probably more than 2,500 participating stations, that's pretty respectable. And you get that special little, you appear in that special little box for the field day article, the results article in QST. And then eventually we did work our way all the way up to number 2 nationally. And we figured that was about as good as we were going to get, because there was no way we were going to touch the Potomac Valley Radio Association with their huge operation going on, where they still had 3 times as many points as we had. The way we did it was we were running QRP, which gives you the 5 times multiplier on all of your QSOs. So to explain on field day, there's 1 point for each phone contact, 2 points for each CW or digital contact. So if you're running QRP, for instance, every CW contact is 10 points. And we had some really good CW operators, so that really ramped it up. And then COVID happened. And that kind of put an end to our big run. Instead, the arrow went to opening up to home operations, mostly because a lot of people were not comfortable with congregating together to run a field day operation. And instead, what the home stations could do was they could declare club affiliation. So the club scores would have been aggregated together, and we did respectably that way as well. Well, once COVID went away, we started pulling back together, and we decided that, well, we've gone as good as we can go. We can show we're competitive. We're competitive, very competitive. We've shown that we can move as high as number 2 nationally, which is as good as we're going to get. So let's turn this around to something else. Let's turn this to something where new operators or people want to try a different mode than they're accustomed to could go and operate on field day. And that part of field day is a huge competition, but it's a competition that's disguised as a disaster exercise, because we're supposed to operate as if something has knocked out communications and we're it, essentially. The original plan for field day, when we operated it as a field station out on the field, was you're not running on the commercial grid, and you're setting up the station you're going to use. It wasn't a permanent station, which was good practice for that kind of thing. But we wanted to make it easier for the new people, because when you're operating on QRP, it's rather frustrating when you're calling at 5 watts repeatedly. You hear those other stations out there, but nobody's coming back. That's when we decided to go with something else. Next slide, please. All right. Essentially, we're going to run a what they call, instead of an alpha station, which was a club station running out in the field, we're going to be a delta operation, which means a house running off commercial power. So we didn't want to worry about lugging batteries. The maximum power we could use is 100 watts, which is what we will do. And that way, any new operators who are calling, especially on phone, they're more likely to get a response back, especially since all the other home stations and such are limited to that same 100 watts. So it's a more even playing field, shall we say, for competing. But we want to make it more fun for everyone and give a chance for everyone to operate a bit, actually get some responses back, and work through QSOs. And like I said, try something new. If you've never done digital modes before, come see me. We'll do a little bit of work with that. If you want to try your hand at CW, go for it. There's people willing to work with you on that. If you just want to watch people do CW, yes, you can do that. But we wanted to make it more enjoyable for everyone, and it looks like it worked when we started doing that. For instance, last year, the feedback I got was very positive. A lot of people said it was the most fun they had at a field day in quite a long time, which is what we were aiming for. All right, well, this year, the setup will be on Friday, June 21st. The operations itself will be 2 p.m. local time on June 22nd, that Saturday, to 2 p.m. June 22nd, which is a Sunday. Okay, we're going to have 5 HF stations set up on commercial power. And we're going to be using the N3 FJP, excuse me, field day logging program, which is very intuitive, easy for new people to get a hang on using. I have the license for it, and I can cover all the stations we're using at field day. As long as I'm running on one location, I'm legal with my license, which is what we intend to do. Band captains, and to just clarify what that means, a band captain has agreed to set up a station on certain bands and modes and keep it available for the field day operation. They coordinate it. They don't have to run it the full time. They're hoping to have other operators step in and operate as well. Any new operators can come over and operate at our stations. You don't even have to have an amateur radio license, because we will have extra class control operators at each station. So you will be able to operate. Most of the field day contacts are in the general class portions of the bands. You'll be able to get it there and work if you're just a technician, or if you don't have a license at all. If you know people who might be interested, bring them on out. Operators are going to be needed around the clock, so contact the band captains to arrange time slots. The way we've usually worked it with each station is that they do a high band and a low band. The one exception will be the 10-meter dedicated station. So if they're lucky and 10 meters stays open late into the night, that'll be working into the late hours as well. Sorry? Excellent. Okay, good to hear. They're going to do 6 meters also. 6 doesn't count. That's an extra station. So they can set up an extra station, but it doesn't change our count. But that'll be good to hear. But most stations have a high band and a low band, which means that they can operate around the clock, the full 24 hours. So if 80 and 20 sideband, for instance, if 20 meters shuts down in the evening, they got 80 meters to fall in during the evening to work on. Next station, please. Next slide, please. This is just a breakdown of where we are set up. 2 of the stations are going to be in the garage. All CW operations are going to be in the MCU. That's that communications vehicle that's been mired in Wilson's yard for quite a few years right now. It might be your last chance. Your last piece of history to work in the MCU will likely be this year. And then the digital station and 1 sideband station are going to be in the garage. Joe is going to be operating 40 and 15 sideband in his camper out on the field. Now you notice there's an asterisk next to the garage stations, which means they're accessibility stations. Every other station, whether it's in the trailer or up in the barn, which is where 10 meters is, you have to go upstairs to get it. If you're unable to manage stairs, the garage stations are on a flat concrete pad. So anybody who cannot manage steps, there's stations there you could work on for digital or phone. So we wanted to make that clear that anybody can operate on field day. Next, please. And this is the breakdown by the bands, by the band captains. So Wilson will be coordinating the CW stations. They're doing all bands out of the MCU. Digital will be in the garage. I'll have my laptop set up there, and primarily 40, 20, and 15 meters for that. So multiple bands. I've tried 80 a few times on Digi. Not much going on up there. So I might take a stab at it late evening if it gets quiet on everything else. But that's primarily what we will be working. Jack will be working 80 and 20 meter sideband in the garage. Joe, as I mentioned before, and Bill, KI4RAN, they'll be in that trailer out on the grass there at 40 and 15 single sideband. And they probably have the most QSOs, I think, last year. They really raked it in. Yeah. And then 10 meter sideband Digi and 6 meters will be Dave, NA4VVY, NA4VY. Mouth is getting ahead of itself tonight, sorry. And Paul, N2XZF. And that will be in the barn, what we call the barn, which is nice and air conditioned. Dave. If you're talking about the two different radios, yeah, if you're doing digital on one and sideband on the other, that's fine. Yeah, it's just you can't. You just want to make sure HF stations, right? So you're going to do digital on 6 or something like that, as you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That would bump our count up to 6, though. Yeah. Yeah. Pardon, no. I mean, it would bump us. No. He was saying, hang on. Yes. That's fine. That's fine. What he was talking about was doing 2 HF signals. That would bump us up to a 6 delta if we did that.
Dave, could you please repeat the question? We couldn't hear it on Zoom.
All right. The question. Okay, I'll let Dave repeat his question so we get it clear.
I think I got the answer. So we're going to have 2 radios, and both radios are capable of operating on 10 meters, and one was going to be set up for digital, and one's going to be set up for sideband. So the question is, could we operate both at the same time? And the answer I got was no. You can switch, but you can't do both at the same time.
Thank you.
Yeah, that clarifies that. What you see, if he put out 2 signals at the same time, then we'd be bumped up to a 6 delta operation instead of a 5 delta. Nothing wrong with that. It's just I would have to rejigger the laptop so I'll program for logging, but that's fine. I mean, it's easy enough to do if we wanted to do that. But all right. I think I covered the band captains and what we have. All right. So setup will be on Friday, June 21st, and that's our main setup day. Essentially, we could start setting up 48 hours in advance of field day. So as of 2 o'clock on Thursday, we could start setting up. But who wants to do that? Yeah, we'll just be rushing before sundown to get things done on Thursday. So Friday will be all day. I plan to be there by 9 o'clock. If it turns out it's going to be a hot day, we probably want to do some of the heavy lifting before it gets too hot out there. Question. I'll repeat the question. What time do we start? Yep. Someone's asking what time are we starting? I says Friday. We're starting early at 9 o'clock. That's setup only. 9 o'clock. Correct. To set up. Yes, that is correct. I recommend 9 o'clock. I mean, if people want to come earlier, you want to come at dark 100 and start setting up. Don't wake up Wilson. We can as of 2 o'clock. 48 hours in advance of field day. Oh, let me look at the field day rules just to be sure. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. Well, we are setting up some additional antennas and such there, but it's still considered a home operation. You probably could, yes. Yeah. Let's just try to go with the spirit of the rules. Okay. Okay. Well, like I said, Friday is our main setup day, and that's where we could use a lot of help. So technical abilities needed. We need some muscle. If you don't have the know-how to do these things, just be a good listener, because sometimes it helps with a lot of these things like pulling wire. I think we're not planning on doing any towers this year. So no towers going up. So but raising wire antennas, we do need some additional help with that. Usually we need spotters, because if we're lobbing missiles over the trees to pull a pilot line so we can get an antenna up, we'll need spotters on the other side to make sure nobody's going to get hit on the head with a golf ball tipped arrow or anything like that. And then we're going to need a lot of help running feed lines, driving in ground rods for the stations, flagging guy lines and such. So yeah, that's all part of it. Yeah, yeah. Comment was flagging all the what the potential trip car hazards we have around all the stations. You know, guy lines, lines for putting up awnings, that kind of thing. So we'll cover that. And many hands will make light work. It's a better safety factor. You know, if we're dealing with heavy or unwieldy equipment, you know, the more hands on it, the better, essentially. And we don't want people to get tuckered out running around trying to do it all themselves. Teamwork. You know, we want to do that. And this is a chance for you as a club member, if you haven't done this kind of thing before, to participate in something like that and put a little sweat equity into it. All right, 6 p.m. that night, we'll have a big old potluck dinner for everybody with for family and friends, and that's like the biggest social event the two clubs do together is that Friday night potluck, and we'll have more details on that shortly. Now we run that. And one thing I will do that night is at 9 p.m. is the first time the ARL Field Day Bulletin is put up. We get 100 points bonus for copying that bulletin. And that's the one opportunity we have before Field Day starts itself to copy that bulletin. I usually do it on the digital station, PSK 31, 40 or 20 meters, whichever one I get a better signal on. That's where I get it. I copy it, cut and paste it into a Word document. Done. We have that out of the way. Any questions so far on the setup? I think we're going to have some horizontal antennas, mostly horizontal wire antennas, especially for the low bands. I have a 40-meter quarter wave vertical I'm using for digital. That's the one vertical I know of. 6 meters. I don't know if you're doing a vertical or a beam. A Moxon antenna. And we have some Yakis that'll be up as well. I think those are already pre-existing on towers or masts property. So there's a good mix of antennas we'll be utilizing. Next, please. Okay, Saturday is the big day itself. That's when field day starts. So that morning is when we do our final testing. And one thing I tell you to all the band captains is don't wait till field day to test your equipment. Do a test run at home, because I went through it just yesterday and found that I was missing an adapter. I had plans to completely go through my digital station yesterday. I couldn't do it because I left the adapter I needed on my desk at work. It's in my pack right now. So tonight or tomorrow, I'll sit down and get the final work through on it. I also found that last time, just as field day started, I couldn't get a signal out on my digital station. I couldn't figure out what it was. So you'll find frequently on that Saturday morning, you'll see a lot of other stations doing the same thing. They're doing tests and looking for people to answer them on live on tests and that kind of thing. So test it before field day itself, and especially if you got that brand new antenna you want to try out that you're experimenting with, make sure it's putting out a signal. And have a backup. Always have a backup. But in the past, I always had a couple of dipoles cut for some of the bands I needed because the fancy antenna I was trying out, I tried to do a big loop antenna one time. I couldn't get it to load on field day. Ended up putting up dipoles instead. Wilson. All right. The conversation there was that someone wants to bring another multi-band antenna out there, and he says, "Sure, good to have some backup antennas." And sometimes you test them out and see some of them might be working better than others, and you could switch around to them. Getting points. Now getting the points are done by contact. So QSOs. We'll get into that in just a moment. All right. At 2 p.m. local time on Saturday, that's when it kicks off. So we'll be off to the races, and we're going to be going for 24 hours. So all around the clock to your last contacts are 1:59 p.m. on Sunday. And as I mentioned before, we'll be a 5 Delta operation, so 5 HF stations, and we also have an additional VHF station. We'll be running off the commercial power grid. Now, my Digi station is going to be running off a big battery pack, but I'm going to be topping it off with a charger off the power grid anyway. And then dinner will be on site that evening. Pizzas to be delivered for the operators and the helpers on site only. Now, just want to clarify that the big potluck dinner is where friends and family, everybody comes out, and because they're all contributing towards it. The intention of the pizza delivery, because I'm donating it, is just not to feed the masses, but to feed the people who are on site operating and the people who are helping them out. I put in an email earlier today so I can get a good estimate of how many people will be there, and we'll get an order in advance for that. Next slide, please. And Sunday will be the final push. One thing is from the wee hours between Saturday night and Sunday morning, that's when we get a little thin on operators. You know, we could use a few night owls because we do get some good late night propagation happening. If 80 meters is open, we'll be making some good contacts there. 40 should be open. And sometimes we'll be surprised. Sometimes 20 meters will be open around the clock, believe it or not. It just depends. And the other good thing about the wee hours of the morning is as the sun's starting to come up again, we got a lot of gray line propagation. I usually pick up a few DX stations around that time who are willing to talk to a field day station. And yes, we can work DX stations. So you mark them down as DX on the exchange, which I'll get into in a little bit. And then also you'll see there's a change. Usually most of the stations, the really big guns who are running high power, who usually sit on a frequency and you got to work them. Mostly on Saturday, we do hunt and pounce. Instead, they're going to turn around and look for other stations they haven't worked. So they start moving around doing the hunt and pounce. And that's when we might switch over to going on a run, essentially sitting on one frequency and putting out a call and coming back. And Bruce will talk us through that in a little bit later. He'll give us a little synopsis about how to operate under contest conditions like that, the difference between the two. Last contacts, as I mentioned, at 1:59 local time. As soon as you're done, I'm going to walk around with my little thumb drive and I'm going to start downloading all the logs from all the stations. All the laptops will be coming home with me anyway, so I should not be missing anything. And then we'll need a lot of people to help tear down the stations on Sunday, especially since a lot of us are going to be pretty darn tired. So we still want to do it safely, and we'll appreciate all the help we can get on Sunday to close up everything. Any other questions before I move on? Next, please. All right. Like I said, the points are largely due to the QSOs we make, the exchanges. Now, a complete exchange is the call sign. We're operating under W4EZ, Whiskey 4 Echo Zulu. The class, we are a 5 Delta, and what the ARL or RIC section is for each station. For us, it's North Carolina. So on CW or digital, it's W4EZ 5 Delta NC. By phone, Whiskey 4 Echo Zulu 5 Delta November Charlie. And likewise, you want to get the full exchange from the other station. So if you don't hear all of it, don't be afraid to ask them to repeat. So for instance, if I put the call out, if I was calling from my home station and I copied you, my call back to you might be W4SAR 1 Echo November Charlie. That's a home station running under emergency power. Bruce might come back with N1LN 2 Delta November Charlie. You'll hear from all the other states, all the other sections. The one great thing about the N3 FJP program is it's got all the section abbreviations preloaded in there, so you'll find it. But especially with California, which has like 8 or 10, I think more sections even, you'll be able to find the correct one to put in on the log there. Dave, question. Okay. You want to do a mobile station, a portable? Yes. There's a rule you got to be aware of, and that's when we get into our home operators who might be working with us. You cannot work a station from which you have already transmitted. So if you're working field day, if you're working W4EZ and try to go home and try to work W4EZ from your house, you can't do that. If you're operating separately now, if you're portable, I don't know if you're operating from co-locational. Let me look at the rules on that. Yeah, but I have to see if they allow that in the same. I know they allow it for the quota stations on the club stations. Those are co-located, yes, but let me look at the rules to see what they say about somebody operating under a different call sign from the same location. I understand. Let me make sure it's legal in the rules. I'll give you a ruling on that. Then you can get your lawyer and we can discuss. Okay, next, please. Okay, this is about the home stations. This is a leftover from when they had the COVID lockdowns. They allowed people to operate from home and do a club, name a club affiliation, essentially. And by doing that, they were able to go to the scores they had, and you could aggregate all the scores of the stations that declared this club affiliation, but it doesn't count as an official ranking. It's just bragging rights, essentially. So you could see where, if with the aggregate, you really ranked up high there, up on the in the whole contest, essentially. So when the home station submits their log, they declare a club affiliation. So when you go online with the to submit your scores to the ARL for club affiliation, there's a drop-down list in there. So we just got to make sure we all go with the same one, because every year we have the same argument, because there's a few different instances of how our affiliation has been listed. And in 2022, we had a lot of participation from the home stations. And when I did the aggregate score, we ranked 13th nationally out of all clubs submitting aggregates in 2022. Wasn't official, but it gave us good bragging rights. We were up there, essentially. However, last year we ranked much lower. We had very few home stations participating last year. We had maybe 3 or 4 home stations that threw in. So quite a difference. So we're hoping we'll get a few more participating in this year. So we'll see what happens. Next slide, please. Okay, logging. So at the field day site, we're using laptops preloaded with the N3 FJP field day logger. So these laptops will be there. They're not hooked up to the network or anything like that. They're just running on their own. They're old laptops. Their batteries may be shot. So basically, you got to keep them on AC power. That's not a problem. Home stations, if you want to participate in this, you can use any logging program you like. N3FJP is highly recommended. $8.99 for a lifetime license on that. I like it before, especially for new people. It's very intuitive. I'll pull it up on my laptop in a little bit if anybody wants to have a look at it. N1MM is the other most popular one to use. That's the big one used for contesting. Got a lot of bells and whistles in it, which if you're a contester, it's great. A lot of great tools for you. But if you're a new person, boy, it's got quite a learning curve there, how to put it all together. It is free, however. So if you're willing to work through all that, go for that. Submit your total score in the club reflector. We'd like to know how you're doing. What kind of club scores we all got. And I'll try to make sure this year, if anybody wants to go in on that we will put out certificates for participating, and the top 3 scores will be acknowledged on the certificate. We didn't get to follow through with that last year. We only had a few stations participate, and one of them already had the prize from helping out here on field day, essentially. I'll try to do better with that this year. And just a reminder, that field day rule where you can't contact the station from which you have already operated. So keep that in mind. So if you operate field day and go home, you can't contact the field day station, our field day station. You can contact the rest of the world, no problem. And it works the other way around too, as well. Any questions so far on that? Okay, next slide, please. The other points we make are bonus points. And for Delta stations, this is the list of what we have. There are more bonus points offered to club stations or the alpha stations, which are not available to us. So we don't get to use the natural power. We don't get the 100-point bonus for each station, which is on emergency power. We don't get the bonus for satellite contact. So that's among the things we don't get. Sure. Yes. Well, we don't have by the rules for being an alpha station, we would have to have used a no pre-existing stations. We had to put up everything ourselves, which is not what we're doing here. And also it has to be strictly emergency power, essentially. So that's the reason why we can't do it. So an alpha station that's it has to be run by a club. It has to have those other 2 conditions essentially to do that. So we just wanted to make it easier for everybody by having the commercial power available and running QRO. Dave, question. Yes. I think some of those there are other bonus points available for emergency power home stations. Yes. They go by the highest power level and by what everybody else is doing, unfortunately. So we'd all have to do 5 watts and and QRP. If it's a 1E station, yeah, they get that 100 points, but we don't. No, only transmitter. Now one thing we were able to do on when we were working alpha was that auxiliary equipment could be run off the commercial power grid. So if it was a logging computer that was strictly used for logging, it was legal to run it on commercial power. However, if that computer was being used to run a digital station, nope, it had to be on battery. Okay, the question was, Dave was saying that he's running digital. Does he need to have an internet connection on his computer? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends on what you're doing. If you FT4, FT8, you may want to have that clocking program to make sure you're very accurate, because you need to have that exact time signature when you're changing between transmit and receive. So yes, you may have to have a internet connection then. I'm going to have a hotspot running by mine, so you're probably too far away. That's that little hotspot I have sitting in the back right there. So there's a Wi-Fi signal in the barn. You could probably find out what the Wi-Fi signal in the barn is and hook into that. Okay. Well, these are the ones I put out an email earlier today to look for people to pick up some of the bonus questions. Yes, I'll get to you in just a second, Chip. And go ahead, Chip, with your question. Yeah. Mhm. Okay. Yeah, Chip has offered to set up an NTP server if it was necessary. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, you probably could. The question from D was the elected official or public official, could they come around to all the home stations and we collect 100 points for each? Well, that's 100 points to the home station. I mean, that'll feed the aggregate, essentially. Yeah, yeah. But again, remember the aggregate score is not an official thing. It's mostly bragging rights. So yeah, 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 yeah. But here it is. So essentially, I'm covering several of these already. So 50 points for online log submission. When I pull all your logs together into our one log and set and submit it to the ARL, that's the 50 points right there. So I got that taken care of. The W1AW Field Day Bulletin, I mentioned to you already that Friday evening via the digital station. I've been picking it up every year. Social media publicity, we actually do have a field day page for OCRA, which I think it lies fallow all year until we get close to field day and then I start picking it up again. So we can do that again. And then I asked for people to step up and cover a lot of the others. The 50 points new field day responsibilities bonus, that's very much the same as the safety officer they had, which is only for the club stations, I think. The difference is safety officer gets 100 points. Ours is just 50 points, but hey, 50 points is 50 points. We'll take that. And I believe Bill's stepping up to it's essentially a safety checklist we'll be going through on that, and Joe will be working with them to make sure we're all compliant with that. I'll have a look at the checklist. I have a feeling it's probably many of the safety things we have already covered, so we should be okay with that. And then we'll see who else wants to cover anything else. Media publicity, if anybody wants to step up and handle that. That's essentially contacting newspapers or television or radio media here. And we get the points if they cover us, essentially. It used to be if you just made the effort and sent them in a press release, you get the coverage. Not anymore. They tightened it up so that you actually had to get something out on the air about us or in print. So yes. Hundred points for an educational activity. That's something we put on just to educate the public or any visitors about some aspect of amateur radio. Dee had done it the past few years, showing people how to accomplish the arcane programming of some of those little Chinese handy toys. We could do that again. If we have anybody else who has any ideas for an educational activity, we could do that. In the past, when we were a 9 Alpha Club station, I used to do a scavenger hunt. I had a sheet of paper where people could go to each station and find out about some aspect of amateur radio, and it was a teaching opportunity for them. So asking about CW or what the phonetic alphabet is all about, stuff about the rigs or the kind of antennas you saw at each station. That's something we can do. So this is something I'll be pushing on the reflector, because that's 700 points right there we could pick up. So, and that helps. And we were nowhere near that last time. We only had 300 points or something like that last year. There was a lot we could have picked up otherwise. Mm. Mhm. One here, we rarely, we have a good opportunity to get 100 points, but we've never done it. Or I should say, the last few years, we haven't gone up to the 100 points, is youth operators. Anyone up to 18 years old, if you document them working on your logs, whether they're licensed or not, yes. It's 20 points for each youth operator. Now, it's different youth operators somewhere on our site, so you can't send around the same kid to 5 stations and claim 100 points. Sorry. No. Yeah, no, you got to get the names. If they kids have a call sign, the youngins, well, some are, if it's 18-year-old, they're not exactly a kid. That's all relative. If they have a call sign, get down their call sign as well. But I note on the log which QSOs they had done. On the N3FJP, they numbered the QSOs. You can write down which QSOs those people work. They just had to do one and it counts, but let them go ahead and do a few. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for reminding me of that. They want the age, they want the names, and call sign if they have one. Any other questions on bonus points? Sir. Ah, on our website. Oh, you. Ah, okay. You know what? Go ahead and claim it. I mean, a lot of what field day does, it's the spirit of the rules, and essentially, as people are not trying to really game the system, they're okay with it. Yeah, it's just cooperation between our organizations essentially. So I don't think there'll be too much of an issue on that. They don't vet it. Let's put it this way: they don't vet it very deeply. I think they rely on us following the spirit of the rules essentially. So, next, please. And closing comments. A little bit this goes on to safety essentially. The main thing we deal with there's heat from that time of year. So stay hydrated. Look out for signs of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. I'll hand the mic over to John in a few minutes because he'll help us stay hydrated and as always. All right. Always have help lifting, moving heavy or unwieldy objects. Be careful around power supplies and batteries. Like, don't wear that scissor band watch if you're screwing a terminal onto a battery. Gloves, helmets, and eye protection if you're raising metal. We're not really raising any towers, but always a good thing, especially if we're shooting missiles. You know, we're going to be firing golf ball tipped arrows. We're going to have tennis ball mortars going off, bazookas, all sorts of stuff. So be careful around that. All the feed lines need to pass through lightning diverters bonded tightly to a ground rod. So good, strong mechanical connection. You want that tightened down really good. In the event of a thunderstorm, we will cease operating, disconnect the feed lines, and then reconnect when we're given the all clear. Their safety says that after a cell is passed, you got to wait at least 15 minutes before resuming operation, usually. So hopefully, last year, I think we dodged the bullet. So I don't think we had any shutdowns last year due to thunderstorms, whereas the year before, I think we had 2 shutdowns during field day from that. Use spotters when lobbing arrows, balls, or weights to lift the wire over the trees. Flag any tripping hazards with surveyor's tape or surveyor flags. And in the evening, if you have any really vulnerable hazards out there, we use those little light sticks essentially, or LEDs, these little tiny lightweight LEDs, and just mark those so people don't walk into them. Stay away from poison ivy. I sprayed a bunch yesterday, so a lot of it will die down, but watch where you're wandering into in brush, just to look out for any poison ivy or thorns or such. Look out for ticks and snakes. The only snakes I've seen on the property have been black rat snakes, which are harmless. But yeah, unless you're a rat, don't step on one. They'll bite you because you're stepping on them. There could be. So just like I said, watch where you put your hands and feet, essentially. Oh, I'm not surprised. Copperheads are endemic to this area, so just watch where you put your footing. Yeah, the wasps, yes. He got stung this year, the year before, 2 years before, I got nailed out there. So right. Yep. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, Wilson just mentioned, watch out. There are some fire ant colonies on the property, so don't step on anthills. Walking around barefoot, probably not a good thing. So, all right. And question from Karen? Yes. Yes. Yes, there will be a porter stand set up on the property. So yes, we'll get into the semi-final logistics in a bit. And as I say, we're on Wilson's property, so respect the property. We haven't really had a problem with that in the past, but just to reiterate for everyone, don't go breaking branches, don't go digging holes. Certainly police the area when you're done with it. One thing we want to make sure we police up if we're putting in tent stakes or any metal in the ground, groundwater and such, we want that out of there so we don't break Wilson's mower later on or leave a trip hazard that nobody can see. And I'm going to hand the mic over to Wilson just to see if he has any other house rules for us.
Well, I'm not going to let them in the house, so it doesn't matter. Not very much. I haven't read them in a couple of years. Park on the street if you possibly can. If you pull well off, nobody will bother you, and neither will the sheriff, just to keep from crowding the yard and running it over quite as much. If you want beer, you're welcome to open it on Friday night after work is concluded. Boy, I think that's most of it. Things are about ready. So tell your friends. That's the main thing. We're obviously kind of winding down on field day. We used to put it up 4 or 5 towers, and the dinner was, I believe it got up to 65, but this year we're probably looking around 35. So if you know anybody who wants to come and operate, check them out. And the 2 to 4 a.m. shifts are in extreme demand. So if you want one of those, you need to sign up early.
Thank you, Wilson. And by the way, I will have an espresso pot going to help us reach that 2 to 4 a.m. time slot. I'm going to hand the microphone over to John, so he'll talk a bit about the, I guess, the meal plans and the hydration and et cetera.
Good evening, everybody. This is KM4MDR John. Yeah, I sent a note out to the group reflector a couple days ago, and then a second call today for folks to RSVP that plan to attend the potluck dinner on Friday night. Please take a look at that and let me know if you plan to attend, how many folks, et cetera. There's information in that note, the data that we need, and that helps us make sure we got enough chairs and tables. And if you don't check in but decide to come, you may have to sit in the concrete, but that'll be all right. Just bring something to eat. So setup day itself, I'll get there early as well, and we will have Gatorade and water and ice and all the setups, cups, et cetera. There'll be a full sugar Gatorade, low sugar, and no sugar Gatorade for folks so they can stay hydrated and keep their electrolytes up, those kinds of things. We will do a lunch for the folks that are helping set up around 11:15 Friday morning. We're going to donate Jersey Mike sandwiches and we'll have a fresh fruit salad, et cetera, for lunch for folks that want to join us for lunch that are on site helping us set up that day. And then at potluck, we're going to start setting the tables up for potluck dinner around 4:30 that afternoon. A number of folks have already signed up to help set up and clean up after potluck. We'd like your meals, your food to arrive around 5:30. That way we have time to set it up on the tables, serving tables. And we'd like to start serving around 6:00 p.m. And that way the food doesn't sit out in the heat. Usually it's, sometimes it's been pretty warm, and in the keeping food safety in mind, we'd really not like the food to sit out in your cars for hours before we serve it to the crew. The last thing we want to do is get a bunch of people sick because we left our baked beans in the car for 4 hours. So we will have some refrigeration abilities, 2 or 3 refrigerators, small refrigerators, but we certainly couldn't refrigerate everything. And we don't plan to refrigerate people's cold drinks and that they choose to bring their beer or their sodas or whatever. So keep that in mind. If you've got something you want to keep cold, make whatever preparations you need to keep it cold. Dave's mentioned Saturday night pizza for folks that are on site and operating. And I believe we are going to do Sunday morning breakfast. And I'll be helping to cook. Anybody who wants to help cook, please let me know or let Wilson or somebody know, Dave. And we usually do pancakes, sausage, scrambled eggs, and we have some juices, and there'll be coffee and of course water and Gatorade for breakfast. We usually start serving around 8 o'clock on Sunday morning. Everybody good with that this year again? Was it 9? Correction. The elders in the room have informed me that Sunday breakfast is at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. And so with that, if anybody has any questions for me, if you haven't signed up, I know Bruce and Laura, are you guys going to be here?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
And we have not signed up. We apologize. We're in the process.
No worries. I got you penciled in. I just thought I'd confirm. So,
Okay.
all right. So yeah, don't wait till last minute because you know, the earlier we know you're coming, I can arrange for tables and chairs if we need more. I think we've got plenty, but we can put out a call for more chairs or more tables if we need them. One year when we had 60, I think it was 67, Wilson was the top number. Last year we had 36. And so it's just a matter of scrambling. We get people that bring chairs and tables out and get it all set up. So with that, if there's no questions, I give it back to Dave. No, just go to the reflector, or if you want to tell me tonight, I've got a flyer. If you don't have access, we'll do that. I did have a question for Dan. Dan, do we know what percentage of the combined DFMA OCRA membership uses the group silo reflector? I just wonder, I've got a few flyers here that I printed out. Anybody here at the meeting tonight that needs one, I can certainly give it to you. If you don't have access to the groups IO reflector, that's got my contact information and pretty much what I've just said here this evening. So let me know, see me before you leave the meeting tonight, and we can do that for you.
I do have one answer for club meetings. Those notices go out to 154 people. So that's pretty good coverage. So anything you need to send out, and typically for these meetings, it goes out on Groups IO and from the OCRA website. So I think we hit everybody that way.
Thank you very much. And do we have any further questions? Are there any questions coming in from Zoom that I need to answer? So
Yeah, there's one question that we've got here, Dave.
sure.
Hey, Dave. Wondering if we're doing a home station, do we submit our logs to ARRL and you, or just to you? How does that work?
I don't need the log. Essentially, you're going to submit to the ARL, but on the reflector, just put out what your final score was.
Okay,
your
gotcha.
breakdown. We don't need the log itself.
Okay.
But we'd like to know how you were doing. So.
Hey, Dave, this is Bruce. I got a question.
Sure.
So you went over the bonus points, and
Yes.
Randy, for example, is operating from home, and he's going to be using a generator. Okay, and he's going to submit, I believe, Randy, as 1 Delta. He can also add those bonus points in for his submission, correct?
No, it'd be 1 Echo.
Or, okay, 1 Echo, 1 Echo.
Yeah, as a 1 Echo.
So
yeah, I believe look at the rules, because they on bonus points they'll show you which categories are which of the bonus points are available to what categories of station. That would clarify that. So
okay,
yeah, and I'll put the link up again on the reflector if anybody wants to look at the rules themselves and get familiarized with them. And they could always ask me a question, and I could look it up. So I I can try to help with that. But
Okay.
like I said, they're not. They don't split hairs generally when they're going through the logs here for field day. I think a lot of it relies on the goodwill of the participants, and as long as we're trying to follow the spirit of the rules, I think they're okay with it. So
Yeah. Okay.
yes, question.
Another comment. We always use band pass filters for all of the stations, for all of the bands. I have them
Right.
at home, and I will be bringing them over to the site on Friday. So all band captains, please come find me. I shouldn't be too hard to find. And I will
Very good.
sign out your band pass filters for you, to you, so we know who has what filter.
Mhm. Okay, very good. Question? Question from Karen? Yes.
Dan, can you move the camera back to Dave?
I'm sorry. Yes, they're hearing my disembodied voice. Karen had a question about security. Well, it's us. Yeah, and certainly in the garage, somebody will be there all night. Essentially, people will be around.
I have a general question.
Yes.
This is kind of like maybe to all band captains and to the site. If the band captains need anything to complete their configurations, please make it publicly known before Friday setup. So there's time to be able to do that. Like for the CW stations, I made a note to myself, we always used to get the lightning arresters from Bill, N8BR, and he's not here tonight. And I want to, see if that's something that Wilson and Bill have talked about. So that's probably covered, but it's just an example of something that from each station, they really need to make sure that they have that jumper cable, okay, all of the necessary coax to include in the configuration with the bandpass filter. Because you don't just plug the antenna to the radio, that's got to go to the bandpass filter, then the bandpass filter to the radio, or is there a tuner in the middle? So, there could be some variables, probably not good for Friday.
Yeah, make sure you have enough jumpers to go from your lightning arrestor to your bandpass filter to your tuner and etc. So that checklists are a wonderful thing. That's what I usually go through before I head out, just to make sure I have everything I need. Joe, you had a question? Yes. Mhm. Yeah, Joe's question was for the home stations which are running in the aggregate, is it okay for them to run a different power level, like running QRP, so they can get the multiplier, even though the field day site itself will be running QRO? The answer is yes. So the home stations don't have to run at the same power level. This is in terms of the aggregate score. Whereas the field day site, they always operate. If all the stations that are together at the field day site, they always go at the highest power level. So if one person were running QRP, sorry, you don't get the multiplier. Yeah. But yes. Very good. Okay, one more question. We prefer, if at all possible, Elecraft transceivers, just because they put out the cleanest signals. Yeah, because I know that, and I know they're planning to run ICOMs for 10 meters. I know that gives Bruce hives, but but I know you have a filter. Okay. Okay. But yes. Right. Yeah. All the other stations are running K3s, Elecrafts on the state on site. Well, the thing is, if you bring another transceiver and put it online, that changes our category. That bumps us up also. So, yeah, I understand that. I mean, perhaps yes. Yeah. 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 Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, we're going to try to put up the cleanest signals we can. That's why we use Elecrafts wherever possible. That's why we have the bandpass filters and safety, but also to help put out the cleanest signal we can. So we're not giving each other hash, essentially. All right, I'm going to throw the mic over to Bruce because Bruce, I don't know if you want to make a few quick comments about contest operating, and then the meeting's back to you, and we'll address anything else that needs addressing. Thank you.
Okay, Dave, thank you very much, and thanks much for a job well done here. So Dave wanted me to talk about a little bit about this emergency communication as a contest, and that's kind of what we used to do, but it still could be fun to try to work as many contacts as one person would be comfortable with doing, and that would vary by operator. If you're a new operator, and there's somebody there to help you along, that would be a definite advantage, no matter how you're operating, whether it's search and pouncing or running. So let me just get into a little bit, and we'll start off with search and pouncing. Essentially, what search and pouncing is, and I'm going to make the assumption we do not have internet connection on the radios, because even if we had internet connection on the computers, even if we had internet connection on the computers would all need to be interfaced to the radios. So I'm not sure whether that's going to happen for all stations, okay? Because you need to have the internet to the radio to the computer, and then you're running something called a cluster, all right? It's another presentation program all by itself. But you could click on the station call signs and simply move from one station to the next, and your logging software would automatically populate. You could call that station if it doesn't show up as a duplicate, work the station, and then move on to the next. We won't have that. So what you do is you turn the knob. So, start at one end of the band and work your way either up or down in frequency until you hear somebody calling CQ. And it'll be easy. They'll be calling CQ field day, and they'll send out a call. Simply type that call into the appropriate block in entry FJP, and it will tell you whether that's a duplicate or not. A duplicate means it's already been worked. And if not, stop there and work the person. Timing is critical. So when the person says, it's done calling their CQ, call them right away, because other people will be calling them right away. And if you find out you're not getting through, you might be too slow, or your signal might not be quite strong enough. But that's something that with practice, you will understand exactly how to do it. So the more you do it, the more you get used to it, and the better you're going to be at it. So tune the knob, listen to the stations calling CQ, listen to what they're doing for the next part of what I'm going to talk about, how they're working the other stations, what their rhythm is like, and how they're controlling that frequency that they're calling CQ on. If there's multiple people that call them, they're going to pick one person out, and they'll go back to that person. If there's multiple people calling them and they can't make out the complete call sign of any of them, they may come back with a couple letters in the call sign. If they do that, hopefully, the people that don't have those letters in their call sign will be quiet and allow the other person to go back, make the contact, and then maybe they'll make the next one. So while you're running search and pounce, listen to some of the rhythm and the methodology and the way the people are running. Because if they're calling CQ, they're doing what's called running. If you want to try to run, excellent. When you're tuning up the band and working other stations, see if you can find an open frequency. There may not be anybody on that frequency. And you say something, if you're on sideband, is this frequency in use? Wait a second. Is this frequency in use? Wait no longer. Because somebody else hears you say that, they know it's not, and they'll jump on it and you'll lose it. So then you can start calling CQ Field Day, Whiskey 4 Echo Zulu, and people will call you. If you are running, which that is, running means you are the person calling CQ, you may get more than one person calling you. Rule 1 of running, you are in charge. You don't need to be nervous if you can't get it right the first time. You don't need to copy everything perfectly the first time. Ask for repeats. Say, the station November 4 Echo, what's the rest of your call, please? And they'll come back. If you get a ton of people doing that, say, you can start to be slightly rude. You can say, only the station November 4 Echo. And then maybe people will shut up. Usually works, okay? And then they'll give you their zone, Western New York, 3 Delta, something like that. Copy it down, say thank you, and then thank you, QRZ Field Day, Whiskey 4 Echo Zulu. So call CQ, they call you, you give them your information, they give you their information, you thank them, and then you go off and say QRZ Field Day, Whiskey 4 Echo Zulu. It's a lot faster and more productive running. You can get a pretty good rate. Again, we're not into this for a million points, but it's great practice. I know some of you enjoy working stateside QSO parties. This type of operation is not just good for field day, it's good for anything you might want to do. So we will probably be running on CW as much as possible. We always have. That's how we got all the QSOs before with 5 watts. We had 3 stations for CW and we always ran until we couldn't work anybody else. Or the operator that came in was not comfortable running, then they would search and pounce. So that's how the CW stations got the cues. But back to the end of Dave's slides, the last bullet on there, have fun. Don't put yourself in a position that you're uncomfortable. If you try something, more power to you. If you're not comfortable running, go back to search and pounce, make a few cues, have fun. And with that, let me bring up the presentation again. Any questions first before we? I'm going to turn it back over to Lori because she knows how to drive better than I do. Any questions on Zoom? Any questions from the room? Okay. Next slide, please. It's coming. Okay. So we've gone through check-ins, opening comments, and field day. And where are we with time? 8:39. Okay. Are there any officers that would like to have any kind of comment? Let me start here in this room. I think you've heard enough from me. Lori, do you have anything you'd like to share with the group?
I do not. I'm good.
Okay. Dan, do you have anything that you would like to share with the group?
I always like to say thank you to all the members who, as we have a meeting approaching, renew their dues, and we currently have 112 members. Only 2 need to renew, and there are no expiring memberships this month.
Excellent, excellent. Boyd, do you have anything you would like to share as the VP?
He says no.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And we've got some directors, board of directors, and let's see, let me see, I wrote them down because I think I know who's there. Aurora, you're on Zoom. Any comments for the group?
No, but I will renew my dues. Thank you for the reminder, Dan.
Thanks, Aurora. Let's see, Dee, any comments?
Hold on.
Was that a hold on or, okay.
Looks like I'm the designated speaker. Yes. Thank you for the reminder. We do have a volunteer exam session this coming Saturday at this site at 10 o'clock in the morning. The building is being shared. There's a conference going on that'll be in this room here. So we'll be holding the VE session at the side room of the sanctuary as was done last time. So, and we'll have signage up to direct the candidates toward the correct end of the building, essentially. But thank you all.
I realized that maybe I should give a ham pie announcement. Can I do that?
Go for it.
So just, I think everyone in the group knows this, but because there's field day, there's no ham pie this month. Next month, we will be having an in-person with option to Zoom hybrid meeting. Chuck is going to be talking about how to use pies to program microprocessors. And the location of that, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I will send it out in email. And Chuck has been really nice and like reserved a spot at his work for us to be able to meet at the computer lab there. So come in person if you can. It's more fun.
Excellent. Thank you. Wilson, you already did talk a little bit about field day. You have anything else you'd like to add about anything?
I hate to admit it, but I do not.
That's
Except
okay.
that we're all enjoying this beautiful screen and thinking about not having to put one in the car.
Thank you, Fred. Let's see who else. Oh, Karen. Dave's been talking all night long. If he has anything more to say, he can jump in now too. Karen, do you have any comments for the group as one of the board members?
Few passes.
Okay. And that leaves Ron. I see you on Zoom.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay, and I got one comment for you. Dan keeps telling me what a great job you're doing. So thank you very much for coming forward to be a volunteer to join the group this year and for all of the help that you are putting forward too.
You're welcome very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ron. Doing a fantastic. Really appreciate it.
You owe me $20 for that, Dan. Okay, Fred, do you have any comments for the group?
Yes, I always have a comment. First of all, I want to thank Bruce for coming down to Chatham and giving us some advice and helping us get started with our first attempt at field day. And it's, we thank you very much. And also thanks to Dan for coming down and giving us some advice on grounding and bonding and making sure that we're operating safely. And I'm also thanks to Ron for coming yesterday and helping us set up and test antennas and equipment. So it's, again, a good cooperation between the groups, and thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Fred. And last but not least, I purposely kept Bob for last because he operates in a dual role. So he can have a comment as one of the board members and also as from DFMA as the president. Any comments, Bob?
He's on the way.
Well, thank everyone for coming tonight again. This will be my third field day up here. I would encourage everyone to come out just to experience if you never have. Don't be shy. You don't have to operate if you don't want to. Just be a part of it. Get a feel of it. Like I said, you can come anytime. Everybody's there at the first and it thins out, but don't be afraid to come back later. And don't wait to hear about it on the repeater because you probably won't hear much on the repeater. That was my first mistake years ago during field day. I kept waiting to hear on the repeater and never heard anything. And then it was over. So with that, I'll throw it back to you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bob, and great comments. Appreciate it. Okay, I think I kind of did it from looking around the room from a remote Zoom screen here. I think I got everybody. We'll kind of look down the group here and see if I got all of the board members and officers and stuff. Looks good, I think. Okay, so with that, the next item is just open discussion from anybody on any members on Zoom in the room. Any comments from anybody about any topic, something you'd like to see in future meetings, anything at all. Please feel free, throw it out there, and so we can keep track of it.
So this is Ron. I've got one thing. I know that we had talked at one point about building a list of frequencies that we should have available for our handy talkies and such. I just want to make sure that doesn't fall off our radar because I've done the best I can do, but I'm sure I'm missing some critical frequencies that I should probably be monitoring. Thank you.
Excellent comment. And I know that is a high priority between the Chatham group and a few of us here in Orange County. And hopefully I'll be home the entire month of July. I would like to think we can get that done in the month of July. There's only so many frequencies and so many ways you can do it. So I would like to hope that we can get that done, Ron.
Okay, I can't let this silence go by. Most of us know about it. Some of us may not. Some of us may have forgotten about it. But I want to give my yearly spiel for the ARRL. If it were not for the ARRL, we probably would not have most of our bands. And if you don't read the magazine, that's okay. If you're not particularly technical, that's okay. Neither are they. They have pretty well ceased to be a serious technical organization, but they do try. And one of the magazines called QEX, which you may not have seen, is quite technical. Articles from outside, and some of them are challenging. So it's gone up. I think it's getting up towards $50. That's the price of 2 moderately decent dinners in Hillsborough now. And it really does help organize our hobby. They do lots of contests and field day and things like that. And they also work very hard. It's the only organization that works for us legislatively. And believe me, there are those who would like to have our frequencies. So please join if you can.
Thank you, Wilson. Let me add something to that. If any of you are on some of the ARRL distribution lists or any reflectors, I don't think I believe I have sent out at least one email to the OCRA DFMA reflector. You may or may not know that the ARRL was hit with a huge cyber attack, probably over a month, maybe almost 2 months ago now. And they're still working their way through it. So I think they got really hammered. If you're trying to put any updates on Logbook of the World, you'll find out that that is not fixed yet. And there's been an awful lot of complaints about why aren't they sharing exactly what they're doing, exactly what happened, how it happened. People are complaining all over the place. And honestly, why do we really care unless we're just nosy? Give them the opportunity to fix it. They are working with the FBI and the FCC, and they are trying to get through this mess. There's been a lot of suggestions and theories and opinions as to what happened. All I know for sure is it was some kind of a cyber attack that really nailed them. So to Wilson's point, go ahead and join, pay your money, give them some dollars to run the organization. Maybe they can get better antivirus software. I don't know what it is, but have patience. They will be back. They are very busy now, working very diligently on trying to repair things.
The online registration is working, and so is the telephone registration. So that need not hold you up. Bruce mentioned Logbook of the World. Not many DXers in here, it doesn't look like, but if you happen to be working for DXCC or worked all states or anything like that, Logbook of the World is online now and has revolutionized awards, because we used to have to fight to get QSL cards from Albania before we could count them in our DXCC list. Now we don't anymore. If the DX is on Logbook of the World, that serves as our QSL card. And Logbook of the world is quite secure. And I too am frustrated because that they don't tell us exactly what they're doing, because I would like to stage my own attack. And if they would tell me that, it would really give me a head start. So
And there you go.
that may have something to do with why they haven't told us.
Thank you, Wilson, for your comments. I appreciate it. Okay.
Chip's holding up his hand, Bruce.
Okay, I can't see it, Chip. Go ahead.
Chip agrees. We're better off not knowing what they did.
Oh, okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, just flipping to the last page. I would say thank you all for coming. I say here, see you in July. And actually, I forgot to put the date down. I think it's the 8th or something like that. But hopefully we'll see you at Field Day. And we'll see you Friday at Field Day to help lift, pull, push, connect, bend, fold, mutilate, and end it with dinner. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. And we're going to go put on longer sleeve shirts. It's cold up here. Thank you.
And remember what M stands for.
Have another
meal.